And we begin with the Russia-Ukraine war. And the first Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has put out as possibility that his country can cede territory to Russia temporarily in exchange of a NATO umbrella over the territory that Ukraine still holds. Now, in an interview with Sky News, the Ukrainian president suggested that to stop the war and efforts to reach ceasefire, Kiev could diplomatically negotiate the return of the territory in the east that is currently under Russian control.
But if we want to stop the hot stage of the war, we should take under NATO umbrella the territory of Ukraine that we have under our control. That's what we need to do fast. And then Ukraine can get back the other part of its territory diplomatically.
The comments represent a considerable shift in his position. Kiev has previously said that it would continue to fight Russia until Ukraine returned to its internationally recognized borders, which includes Crimea, as well as the 4 regions annexed in 2022. That is Donetsk, Kherson, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia. And now Ukraine has opened itself to other security guarantees to achieve peace. But nonetheless, this proposition is highly theoretical. As Zelensky pointed out, no one has yet made such an offer. Whether NATO will ever consider such a move is in doubt, because like Zelensky said, NATO will need to offer membership to the whole country, and that includes those parts that is currently under Russian control.
Yes, it could be possible, but no one offered. But the invitation must be given to Ukraine within its internationally recognized border. You can't give invitation to just one part of a country. Why? Because thus you would recognize that Ukraine is only that territory of Ukraine and the other one is Russia.
Zelensky has maintained his position that NATO should immediately cover the part of Ukraine that remains under its control. That would be a guarantee that Putin does not return even when a ceasefire has been called. Now, talks of a possible ceasefire or peace deal have ratcheted up since Donald Trump won the U.S. presidential election earlier this month with a promise to end the war on his first day in office. All right, now to discuss more, we've been joined by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis from Sterling, Virginia. He is a military expert and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Thank you so much for taking out your time and joining us. I would like to begin by asking you, President Zelensky has said that he will agree to give the territories occupied by Russia temporarily, and he has suggested that the parts of Ukraine under his control should be taken under the NATO umbrella to try and stop the, as he phrases it, hot phase of the war. How realistic do you think it is, and how different is it from a NATO membership?
Listen, we just got to be frank. There's no chance for this at all. It's too late for this kind of a deal. I mean, Russia has all the cards in its favor. Everything is trending towards a Russian military victory. And if there's going to be any negotiations, probably the entry point will be what Putin was talking about last June when he said it would be all 4 of the areas that he had annexed in 2022, and he wouldn't even consider anything less. And that means they have to give up even more territory than they have right now. And that also requires no NATO membership at all. And Russia is not in any kind of position to give in to something that Ukraine wants like this, because that's the reason they went to war in the first place, was NATO coming into Ukraine. So I can understand why Zelensky's trying to make a deal at the last minute, but I frankly think it's too little, too late.
Right. Now, let's also take the other side. Now, Donald Trump has tapped in Keith Kellogg to serve as the special envoy for the conflict. Now, Kellogg's plan, as reports say, involves freezing the battle lines at their prevailing locations and forcing both Kiev and Moscow to the negotiating table. Now, we know that President Zelensky has now proposed this deal. How do you think will U.S. interfere?
Well, listen, I think that all of these plans are missing a huge component. They're not even considering the Russian side of this. They're not considering just the plain battle realities on the ground. And when he says that when the Kellogg plan says to force Russia into negotiations, based on what? Because you have to have leverage in order to force somebody into a situation. And right now we have no leverage. Vladimir Putin has all the leverage because he has all of the combat power and all the things that go into making combat power, and especially manpower, that Ukraine doesn't have. So somebody's got to come up with some kind of a rational reason why Russia would be willing to negotiate a deal that's not in its favor when it has all the power. And frankly, I don't see any hope of that. But listen, we also got to understand the context. Just days ago, Putin said that they are now going to target potentially serious issues in Kiev as a result of the last long-range test. So that's why I say I think this is coming kind of late. And I think the next thing Russia's going to do is to respond to that last round of long-range missiles being fired into it. And this whole conversation could change quickly.
Right. Now that you mentioned, of course, the Russian side as well, how urgent do you think Zelensky, because we know that he seems anxious putting out his plan, what could be the next step from Zelensky's side?
Well, listen, I mean, I don't think anything short of an admission that the entry point was going to be from the June 2024 offer that Russia put on the table. I think if he's not willing to even start there, then I don't think that Russia's even going to begin conversations with him. And again, they're still promising to respond based on the last round and based on the missile that has been going on in the last like 24 hours. I think they're going to continue to ratchet up this pressure. So I believe you say, what's his next move? If he's not willing to start where Russia was in June, I don't think that they're going to respond to this at all and will instead just continue on methodically with their military operations.
And that means, well, that seems to be Zelensky does not really have much time, because like we know that Trump, he is looking forward and saying that he will end the war in one day. But what is the move from U.S. side then?
Well, listen, I mean, you've mentioned it before. A lot of people in the United States are talking about this Kellogg plan and what Trump's going to do, et cetera. But these all suffer from the same problem, is that they're ignoring the Russian side of this as though all the ground truth realities aren't there. And listen, the Ukraine side is losing rapidly. They're losing like scores of square kilometers every single week. The pace is increasing. These last rounds of missiles have almost knocked out a lot of the energy infrastructure, especially the heating capacity for Ukraine, and they don't have anything to stop it. So first of all, the West has to acknowledge there is an accelerating war on the Russian side, and things are getting worse and worse for Ukraine. I just haven't heard enough of the reality being part of our thinking.
Right, absolutely. You know, let's see how it progresses. But thank you so much for coming on the show and giving your perspective, Ellen Davis.
Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me.